A Peavey Valverb, manufactured early 90s, I believe released late 92, and this is one from the early 90s, very good condition. Now the Valverb, called Valverb, it had 3 tubes, valves inside, and it did tremolo and reverb. It's a rack mounted unit. I believe some of the demonstration ones came in little tweed cabinets, but I don't know if you could buy those or not. So this is a single unit for a rack. It's quite heavy, solidly well made. There's a foot switch for switching on and off the reverb and the tremolo. It plugs in the back. There's an input on the front. There's also an input on the back and an output on the back. This is a 230 volt model. What else do we know about it? Well, I've got a magazine here which has actually came out in May 1993, and they reviewed this unit and compared it to a green reverb unit, green mat amp, reverb and Peavey Valverb. There's the cost in UK at the time, £295, and they gave it a whirl. So we know it was about 1993 when it was released. A quick look underneath reveals this little sticker with the serial number, and also the manufacturer LOC-03 JCJ07, but serial number, and ends in 95, which might suggest that this is made in 95. There's an input on the front, but also an input and output on the back, and a remote switch. You can see some of the valves, tubes through this grill. 1, 2, 3. This is a rack unit. Some of the display ones in the shops came in some sort of little tweed case, which was very nice, but I don't think you could buy that individually. Controls on the front. Drive, as I said, was a pot straight on the input, about 1 meg, so you really want that up. It does have an overload. Tremolo, speed, intensity. The reverb has got the tone controls, bass, mid, treble, and then this mix, you can have this no reverb at all, 100% reverb, somewhere in between, and the output, a nice low output impedance. Checking out the operation of the unit. Guitar goes in here, maximum. There's a foot pedal. It's got a little light there for maximum drive. We've only got a like single control, a single pickup guitar. You just get it to flash. By boosting the input a bit with an equalizer, you can show it up much better. And you can adjust the output. I've just got it into a small amplifier, so the now you've got a wet and dry signal on the reverb. When it's fully to the left, now when you turn it to the right, so there's nothing if you've got the reverb switched off. So I'll turn the reverb on with the foot pedal. That's 100% reverb, no dry signal at all. And the volume's down a little bit. If you can adjust these controls, the middle makes quite a difference. The bass, quite a big difference, and the treble tends to reduce the mid. It makes it quite bright, so the actual effect, there's some good repeats there. And the length, it's reasonable length, not massively long. And then you dial back the amount and add some normal signal in. And you can switch the reverb off here. So that's the reverb. It's quite comprehensive, I think. And what about the tremolo? Tremolo on. There's no light to tell you that it's on, but obviously you can hear it. It's got fantastic depth and good, fantastic range of speed. That's half intensity. Turn the intensity fully up. And the speed. Very fast. And the speed goes really low. And you can turn it off. So it's fully working. Everything seems to be working just fine. You can get a circuit diagram online. Now the circuit diagram also says 22nd of October 92. It's a bit of an unusual layout because it shows all the connections between the boards obviously inside and how it all plugs together. And it shows the 1, 2, 3 tubes, AX7s, 87s. There's a reverb spring inside. It shows transistor, oscillator, drive-in light dependent diode resistors here for the tremolo power supply. Looks a bit odd, this circuit diagram, the way it's laid out, so I redrew it just to make it a bit simpler to see what's happening. Now right on the input, front and rear inputs, there's a 1 meg pot, which is the drive, this so-called drive control. Normally you'd want that on full for using with the guitar. You don't want to cut the guitar signal down and amplify it, just generate noise. So have that up max. I guess they put that on there if you want it in an effects loop or some other high signal input. So up for guitar, drive to a standard stage here, and then it splits. One way goes to the reverb and one way goes down here, which I'll show you in a minute. So the reverb just comes in, 1287 standard little transformer drives the spring. We covered here. The tone controls, 3 controls, only act on the reverb, nothing else. Then it comes into this dual pot mixer for the reverb signal or the dry signal. So the dry signal comes from this point here, splits off, and they cut the signal by a lot, 470k to 10k, because the signal is too large when it comes back here to be combined with the weak signal from the reverb. And then you can select, as I said, with this dual pot here, which is the mix control, which is on the front here. It's fully off or fully reverb or somewhere in between, and it's sent on its way. It's amplified through. And then there's a level control, which is the output level control, because it's fed to this nice little cathode follower, low output impedance to the output, which is very nice. You can drive long lines and lots of inputs or whatever that is low input impedance without any loss of signal. So that's the output control, well they call it the master down here. So that's good. So that's the reverb straight signal. Now off this straight signal point there's also this little circuit here, which is an overload. They decided to put it on probably for if you've got an effects loop and very high input impedance. If you can't hear the distortion, you've got a lamp to show you that, and it's just a tiny little LED just down there. But this point here, this little combined unit here, which is 2 light dependent resistors with a light emitting diode in the middle, and it when it's on, the resistance goes up and down, and it cuts the signal or doesn't cut the signal here. There's a foot switch here, just stops that being pulsed. just as the foot switch up here shorts the reverb out as well. And you've got a little oscillator here for the reverb to drive that, speed and depth. Power supply is pretty straightforward. There's a high voltage section, lots of nice capacitors, smooth it all out for the tubes, and another low voltage, lots of capacitors. Don't know why they need so many capacitors, but just for the oscillator. So the guitar or whatever signal coming through, it only goes through tubes, valves, not through transistors. Pretty straightforward. There are a couple of mods you can do on here. You don't need a capacitor there. You could boost the output from the spring tank with a little capacitor across that cathode resistor. Get a bit. You could mess around with this if you didn't like the way it works, but it's pretty conventional tone control. There's also a capacitor there which is not needed, doesn't do anything. I don't know why they put that in there. There is a voltage selector on the side, and to remove the top, to look inside, a couple of screws, one in the middle and a couple around the sides, and you can pop the top off like so, and you can see the spring in here. Two springs. There's a little transformer here, reverb. Here are the three valves, 12 AX7s and 12 AT7. Tubes have got Peavey written on them. Nice capacitors here and here for the high voltage, low voltage. This is covered over for safety. What's to see really? There's a printed circuit board, two fuses there, one fuse there. Everything plugs together. To get the circuit board out, probably quite difficult. You'd have to remove all the pots, etc. Components lined up here. And there's a little relay. I didn't show that on the circuit diagram. When the foot switch operates the relay, just turn the reverb on and off. There is a date code on this capacitor, 9226. It means the capacitor was made week 26 of 1992, so this unit was obviously made after that. There is the photo cell, dual variable resistors in that little package made by Vactrol. One thing that's going to need repairing is the reverb tank. The reverb tank was originally mounted on some foam pads to absorb vibrations, I expect, but they've completely disintegrated over time into nothing. So I'm going to have to clean that off and mount this on some sort of foam like this, fairly soft, to try and absorb any vibrations. I'm going to stick this nice soft sponge in there, bit of very thin double-sided tape, and put a bit there and a bit there. But I'm going to also put a piece on top, and then when the top is put on, this is very soft too. It's going to just hold it on these pads. It's going to be nicely isolated. I decided to check out boosting the reverb a little bit that I mentioned earlier on the circuit diagram. Reverb recovery circuit here has got a 1K5 but no bypass capacitors, so the gain of this stage could be higher if it bypassed with a capacitor, because I thought the reverb still sounds a little bit weak compared to the dry signal. So I put a capacitor in on a switch here. I can switch it in and out and show you the effect, especially on the treble side of the reverb, which I thought was very weak. So this is the dry signal, and then this is the reverb as without this capacitor in. Levels very low. So now with I'm going to switch the capacitor in. Really nice and loud now compared to the dry and the treble. and the mid-range is going to be nice and strong compared to the dry. It's much louder now. Bit of bass, and it was originally this volume. Switch it in. Really good now. So you can turn the mid and bass down and have a nice trebly reverb now. It's good. I think it's much better with that extra gain on there, and then you can adjust it back. Get a nice blend. I'm going to leave that in. It's very easy to take out. Soldered in the extra capacitor for extra gain on the reverb. Just make sure it works before I seal it back up. Yeah, lots of volume there. Fitting the top back on, just making sure that you've got some nice bit of foam rubber pressure on the top of the tank now, which should give it some nice isolation. Clean the front panel up with some just some baby wipe. It's come up like new, really nice and shiny, no corrosion, and all the knobs are like new. All the pots turn like a dream. All the lights work. Good reverb signal now, nice and strong. Turn it down to dry. Turn it up to full. Treble, bass. Mid. Bass. Somewhere in between. Mix. So that works real good. Depth, speed. Everything works perfectly, no noise on any of the controls. Background noise is pretty low on maximum. On-off switch works. Really nice, really nice.